Hello there, this is Season 2, Episode 5 of Paradise Preview. Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Graham Wilson as we look ahead to Celtic's tie against Helsingborg in the Champions League playoff round. Hello, so it's a big tie this Tuesday, the away game against Helsingborg, Henrik Larsson's former side. What do you think about the upcoming game?
Well, yeah, Josh, it's definitely the most important tie of the season, without question. This really is going to hold the cards for whether or not we get group stages of the Champions League, which is where we rightfully belong, where many of our players really want to establish themselves and really drive their profiles and their careers on. I think we're ready to make that step. First off, looking at our opponents here, Alejandro Bedoya, who may be a familiar name, but if it's not for most folks, it's probably not a surprise. He played for the former, now defunct Rangers side last season. He now plays for Helsingborg's. Scored in his debut. Sends out plenty of tweets that he doesn't like Celtic very much, which is kind of cute for him because he's absolute rubbish. But another couple of interesting tidbits. Neil Lennon, has come out in the press and mentioned that he's not going to be getting any help from Henrik Larsson. In fact, he hasn't even reached out to him, which I completely understand. I mean, he's mentioned that Henrik has his boot, so to speak, in both camps, and it wouldn't be fair to put him in that sort of scenario. Now, with that being said, he does have Johan Mjällby, who, let's be honest, maybe nobody has as much familiarity with the Swedish league as Johan. Maybe nobody has as many contacts as Johan. So obviously they're going to be drawing on a wealth of information to get an accurate scouting report of this side. For many of the Celtic supporters going over to Helsingborg, it's the site of the Henrik Larsson statue. Limited amount of tickets available, unfortunately, I think about 660. But for those lucky Celts that can go over and support the team, you can obviously take a day out to take a look at the statue. But getting down to the team itself, in their last 5 games, they've won 3, lost 2. Some players to watch: Daniel Nordmark and Erik Sundin, both midfielders, and they're both the leading scorers for the side. Nordmark with 5 goals, Sundin with 3. Their strikers, Santos and Soren, only have 2 goals apiece, which they're about 18 games into their season at this point, joint 5th in the Swedish table. Josh, what are your thoughts? I mean, coming off of the last 2 results, one obviously being the preseason friendly against Real Madrid with a week inside, and then, of course, the draw away to Ross County, tough game with, again, many of our key players out. What are your thoughts going into this important time? I mean, reflecting back to Helsinki, a very important win, very, very enthralling, confidence building. Your thoughts?
Well, I didn't really like the game against Ross County at the weekend. I'm not really complaining about the result. I was happy to get the 1-1 result because Ross County did defend well, but overall our tempo was quite slow, and obviously we had loads of injuries. We've got a lot of injury concerns for the upcoming game. So hopefully a few of them will be able to make their way back into the team. I think at the weekend we really lacked a proper striker up front. Obviously Samaras, he only scored like 4 goals last season. He isn't a proper striker/target man. I'd really like to see Guy Hooper come into the side and be properly fit, not half fit. I think I'd like to go out with a 4-5-1 because obviously in the away tie, we don't want to attack too much and we don't want to concede any stupid goals and end up losing like 4-0. I think it is an advantage playing an away leg first because typically in the last few years in Europe, we've always played the home leg first, and the first leg is always harder for the bigger team. So I do think we have a little bit of a benefit having the away leg first. So I think going over there, just make sure we don't lose too much. I wouldn't be too bothered if we lost 1 or 2-0, as long as it's not any more than 2-0. I'd say that'd be a good result.
I can definitely see the logic behind, you're wanting a 4-5-1. Obviously, we want to do everything that we can to keep a clean sheet against this side. Now, this Helsingborg side averages 2.1 goals at home per game, but on the road, they only average about 1 goal per game. So definitely a side that, if we can manage to keep a clean sheet, I mean, fingers crossed, that would be absolutely brilliant. I would love a 0-0, but I would absolutely be ecstatic with a 1-0. And that's the reason why I wouldn't go for a 4-5-1. I'd go for a 4-4-1-1, and part of that is to get certain players into the side, certain players that have been very dynamic lately, and obviously you want to continue on with the players who have been in form as of late and fit the system to them to a certain extent. Now, obviously the keys there are no mistakes at the back, and that means keeping Kelvin Wilson and Michael Lustig as far away from that back four as we possibly can. Lock them in the hotel room, whatever you need to do, but it's got to be Charlie Mulgrew and Thomas Rania there in the central defense for Celtic. With that being said, thinking back to that Ross County game, I agree completely. Lack of tempo, once again, a lack of initiative to a large extent. I think we are missing Scott Brown to a large degree. Fingers crossed he's getting back into training today, hopefully, and hopefully he can see his way and train his way fit in the next couple of days. Obviously, that's going to be a big ask, but if there's ever a time to call upon him when things are sort of borderline, I would definitely say that this is it. His presence definitely has been missed. His value to the team has definitely been demonstrated in his absence. Another player that I think, as you mentioned, is going to be absolutely vital to be able to fire the bullets that are made for him and give us the best possible opportunity to score goals is Gary Hooper. Like you mentioned, Samaras, he provides a dynamic outlet down that left-hand side, driving defenders crazy, stretching out the defense like a piece of spandex, opening up space for maybe a late-running Joe Ledley or a Gary Hooper if they can work away from the ball themselves. With that being said, also Chris Commons. He's had a fantastic preseason, and the opening of this season, he's been probably one of our most dynamic players, a creative player in the center of the park as well as on the wings. I like him playing just behind Gary Hooper, linking up in that space between the banks of four. Helsingborgs are going to set out to play put some of that space in between those banks. Maybe have Sammy run and drag defenders down, get the ball in front of him where he really flourishes, and then have Commons there to link up with Hooper. And like I mentioned, a 0-0 would be fantastic. A 1-0 would be absolutely extraordinary. Josh, what are your thoughts in terms of the starting 11 that you'd put out there?
Well, as I said, even losing 2-0 against Helsingborg, it wouldn't mean we'd be knocked out, because I think even if we do lose 2-0, we could easily get 2 or 3 goals at Celtic Park if we have a target to aim for. But I do think Helsingborg, they're not the best team in the world. I think we could go over there, get a draw, maybe even a 1 or 2-0 win. Against Helsinki, we were quite good away, we had a high tempo, and we could have even got another goal or 2 against them. So that's why I'd like to see our 4-5-1, sort of the same sort of lineup as we've seen against Helsinki, with Commons and Samaras on the wing, with Brown, Kyle, and, well, we can't have Wanyama there, but we can't have Ledley. Mm-hmm. I think Kyle and Ledley go well together, and both of them really just protecting the back four, just making sure that Helsingborg don't really get any counter-attacks or slow down any of the Helsingborg attacks. Meanwhile, Scott Brown can pick up the pace and just really dictate the flow of the game and just really focus on attacking rather than focusing on defending, because that's his strength. Usually Neil Lennon's put him out on the right to make sure that he doesn't have as much defensive liability, but he's not a winger. I'd say he's a centre attacking midfielder, so that's where I like to see him. And obviously Samaras, Commons and Hooper, the 3 of them have been quite effective in Europe so far this season.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. And a lot of the logic that you're bringing up here is what I would enter into my formulation. First off, at the back, I would definitely start off, Matthews, Mulgrew, Rania, and then Izagari. Izagari had a couple of nervous moments yesterday, and in defense got on the wrong side of a Ross County attacker. That's the certain things that he's going to need to tighten up. But going forward, I definitely see progress. His service into the box was so much better, and I look for that to continue to improve as he improves his confidence coming back from that horrific injury last season. I would also agree that we need Ledley, Kyle, and Brown in that midfield, but I'd almost want a 4-4-1-1 where Brown is going to be on the right-hand side, and I definitely acknowledge the limitations that you have there with him. I agree completely, but in the formation that I'm envisioning, Sammy on the left-hand side, I think that's really the best place to keep him and to start him. Make sure that he's going to be pegged to that left-hand side so that we can utilize his dynamic play down the flank there. And then we can have Commons just sort of floating through the middle. He could even spread right, and with an advancing Samaras, that could evolve into a 4-3-3. With that midfield three of Kyle, who's so good in tight spaces, I mean, you could put him in a telephone box and he'd come out, with the ball and turn around in a quick transition. Ledley's so good at picking the ball up from the defense and building from the back. He's absolutely vital, especially also going up against a team that's going to counterattack. He does so much to slow down advancing opponents before he hands them off to the defense. That's absolutely going to be vital. And Scott Brown's energy and enthusiasm, I think, has really been missing from the side since that game against Helsinki. Gary Hooper, fingers crossed, he's going to be fully fit, and have a lot of confidence. Hopefully we can score a quick goal. I mean, that would be absolutely superb. But the key really is to, like in the Helsinki game, make sure that we remain composed, especially in that first 20 minutes. Don't make any stupid errors, and don't let up any cheap goals. I mean, throughout, keep it nice and tight, especially in set pieces. And I think that we can see our way through with even a 1-0 victory. 1-0 victory for me would be absolutely ideal, especially considering the fact that this team, this Helsingborg's team, is it's so good at home relatively, in terms of scoring goals, but when they get away from home, it's a hard task for them to try and provide attacking options. That's going to sell our nerves coming back to Celtic Park and increases our chances exponentially. I think after that away win at Helsinki, really the paradigm shift has taken place, hopefully, with the mentality that we can go away from Celtic Park in Europe, get a result, and come home. It goes back to that Udinese tie last December. I think that we're really building here. In terms of scoreline, what's your prediction? I mean, you mentioned you wouldn't have too much of a problem with a 1-0 defeat, or a 2-0 defeat is that's a tall order. That would be a bit much for me. But what do you think in terms of prediction? 0-0 it wouldn't be the worst result in the world, but what do you expect?
I don't really know that much about Helsingborg, but I could say we could maybe go over there and get a 1-0 result. I think the benefit is that Helsingborg are going to have to come out and attack because, at Paradise, no team really wants to go out attacking there. So, I think they're going to really play into our hands, try and attack, and we can exploit the space behind the attack and hopefully get a 1-0 result.
That's a fantastic point, that I didn't even think about. They are going to have to be on the onus to go out and really get a result early on. Again, can't emphasize enough, no mistakes at the back. We got to keep it to use the cliche, we have to keep it tight. Lots of communication there. Our central defensive partnership really needs to be on their toes. And with Kyle, Ledley, and Brown really fortifying the middle there, and providing a layer of protection, we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that we can stifle any advances that they have. My prediction's a 1-0. I think the game against Ross County was the perfect lead-in to this. I mean, it woke up certain players. I think, especially Joe Ledley, who, let's be honest, he's been caught sleeping a couple times recently in some of these games in the transition. This is a wake-up call that we can't take any opponent lightly, that we need to match the sort of intensity that's going to be brought to us. And make no mistake, this Helsingborg side is going to be up for this tie. Neil Lennon needs to make sure that the troops are going to be up for this tie equally and even exceedingly, and I have full faith that he's going to do so.
Good stuff. So this has been another episode of Paradise Preview. Hail, hail, and keep the faith.